Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hafiz Salmawi. I am a professor of energy engineering at Zagazig University in Egypt and key expert in the project support to the technical and financial sustainability of renewable energy and energy efficiency sectors. As most of you know, this project is an EU-supported project in cooperation with both Ministry of Electricity and Renewable Energy and Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources in Egypt. The project is executed by a consortium of consultants led by DAI Human Dynamics. It consists of 5 components. These components include reorganization, the core functions of New and Renewable Energy Authority, NAREA, modernization of the renewable energy framework, establishment of an energy modeling unit, establishment of the Cairo Sustainable Energy Information Center, and technical assistance to the Energy Efficiency and Climate Unit at the Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure in this project to hold our 5th webinar and the second one in a row on hydrogen, due to the importance of this topic. The title we choose for this webinar is Investment in Green Hydrogen Projects in Egypt, an outlook on potential markets, application, and challenges. This follows our first webinar on hydrogen, which was entitled The Green Hydrogen Hype, Potential Benefits and Challenges of Egypt. In this webinar, we are focusing more on what can be the approach Egypt should take when it deals with hydrogen. In this webinar, we will have different setup from our previous webinar. We are adopting the panel discussion approach, where we will debate the subject through questions and answers and comments from our panelists on the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe all our panelists are pro-green hydrogen from different perspectives and positions. Therefore, as a moderator, I will challenge this belief, considering Descartes' approach of deductive reasoning. Therefore, I will apply the rule of the direction of mind, which consists of 4 rules: accept nothing as true that is not self-evident, divide problems into their simplest parts, solve problems by proceeding from simple to complex, and recheck the reasoning. With this in mind, I will start with the 3 challenges which are facing the development of hydrogen as a part of the energy transition. These challenges are high cost compared to other natural gases, where the current cost of production of hydrogen is between $2 and $4 per kilogram. This cost is expected to be around $1 per kilogram, maybe a little bit less by 2030, due to the reduction of the cost of renewable energy and cost of electrolyzers and improvement in their efficiency. This will be equivalent to around $9 per million BTU, compared with natural gas, which has price between $3 and $5 per million BTU. Sure, this cost doesn't include cost of CO2 emissions. Secondly, it is not easy to transport and storage hydrogen, where it is liquefied at minus 253 degrees centigrade or 20 degrees Kelvin. Even if it is used as a gas, it has very low specific gravity. It's around 7% of the air. Compared with natural gas, hydrogen density is 12% or 8% of the gas density, depending on the gas composition. This means larger storage and piping diameter, or operating the piping system on higher pressure. This will lead to either higher infrastructure costs or higher running costs, or both. Third, green hydrogen suffers from low overall energy efficiency. Electrolyzers of hydrogen production has an efficiency around 65%. When hydrogen is converted back to power, the conversion efficiency, for example, in the fuel cell may be in the order of 60 to 70%. This means a net use of energy from hydrogen will be around 42%. This may lead to the question, do we have alternatives to hydrogen which can achieve the targets of carbon neutrality, energy security, and least cost? This alternative can be of less cost and less technical challenging than hydrogen. Second question, this may be followed by a second question, considering the previous hopes of renewable energy initiatives in the Mediterranean. Is a cooperative attitude demonstrated in many of the announced hydrogen strategies will be followed, or the most countries and economic zone will give priority to less import dependency? Considering these questions, or offensive question I would like to call, I will stop at this point and looking forward to our panelists to guide us to the challenges, these questions, to challenge these questions and prove to us that hydrogen is a way to go and how Egypt can benefit from this transition in the energy nationally, regionally, and internationally. I am happy to present our distinguished panelists, Dr. Mohammed Sawi, Engineer Andreas Baker, Dr. Wissam Baz, and Engineer Ahmed Al-Bous, as well as Mr. Hans Bruns from ENGIE. If you allow me to just give a brief bios for our respectable panelists, Dr. Sawi has more than 44 years of professional experience in global energy, including renewables. Dr. Sawi has the last 5 years he spent in leading efforts with reputable Egyptian technology pioneers teams towards the introduction of green hydrogen. He has 41 years of experience in Kuwaiti National Petroleum Company, a world-leading international oil refinery gas processing company. He spent out of this 16 years in the corporate planning, which is the think tank of the group. Also, another 15 years of these 31 years in technical service department, where he was a chief process engineer at MEA Refinery Process Engineering Division. Dr. Sawi has got his PhD in chemical engineering from University of Surrey in England, and he is a fellow member of the British Institution of Chemical Engineers and members of the American Institution of Chemical Engineering. Mr. Andreas Baker, he is a country CEO and executive board member of Tyson Group Industrial Solution Egypt. He started his responsibility effectively in February 2021. He started his career with UHDE in 1995 and held a number of managerial functions during his 26 years at Tyson Group, such as head of business development and opportunity management. From 2003 till 2009, he was also the corporate spokesman. And during that time, responsibility for corporate communications. Mr. Andreas Baker studied chemical engineering at RW Technical University of Aachen, Germany, and graduated in 1994 as a diploma engineer. Dr. Engineer Wissam Al-Baz. Dr. Al-Baz is the co-founder and CEO for Nexant Analytica, which utilize state-of-the-art technologies for the acceleration of energy transition in Egypt and Africa. In 2019, Dr. Al-Baz was a strategic and engineering advisor at the Egyptian Electricity Regulatory Agency and an energy consultant at the World Bank. His work focused on developing sustainable regulatory frameworks that improve the integration of renewable energies, energy efficiency, and emerging technologies into the electricity grid, such as electric vehicles. Dr. El-Baz supported Egypt ERA in setting regulations concerned with electric vehicle charging stations, which is currently under review by the Ministry of Electricity and Renewable Energy. Before founding Nexus Analytica, Dr. El-Baz was a research associate at the Institute of Energy Economy and Application Technologies at the University of Munich, and a visiting researcher at University of Oxford. His research focused on the optimization of distributed energy generation in buildings and the integration of prosumers into peer-to-peer energy and flexibility trading platforms. Within his career, Dr. El-Baz has worked on several projects funded by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. Also, Dr. El-Baz has an adjacent assistant professor at the American University in Cairo, lecturing on sustainable energy. Engineer Ahmed El-Bous, he has a degree in electrical machines and power engineering. Dr. El-Bous, Engineer El-Bous, has been started his career with Total Egypt in the downstream sector, and then moved to Saudi Arabia to join Saudi International Petrochemicals, Saudi Aramco, and then to Wood PLC. Then moved back to Egypt to work currently as a project manager to one of the international oil and gas operating companies in the upstream sector. Engineer El-Bous also is a self-driven entrepreneur as the co-founder of Sustainable Energy Entrepreneurs, led by his passion towards finding technically feasible yet commercially viable unconventional green energy solutions to support the world's most concerning climate change and the net zero global by 2050. Engineer El-Bous developed a study for Egypt Hydrogen Economy Roadmap 2035 initiative document published in 2020 to promote the hydrogen and fuel cells. Last but not least, Mr. Hans Braun from ENGIE, because he has a very busy schedule and he do his best to join us. So we thank him very much for allowed time to join us soon. So considering my opening question, back to my opening speech, I say, considering my opening question, I appreciate each panelist give us initial thoughts within 3 to 5 minutes. This will be followed by a rotating questions and mutual comments from the panelists. At the last 15 minutes, the door will open for questions from the panelists. We will make it interactive so participants could forward directly their questions orally. So I will start by Dr. Mohammed Sawi. Please, the floor is yours. Please keep time between 3 and 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we start with my presentation, slide 1, please? Yes, this is slide 1, which say how is the solar and wind is growing tremendously globally. From 2018 to 2019, the increase were more than 1.4 million barrels. And in 2019, it exceeded on global basis the power generation from nuclear. Now, so based on this, the world is coming to a conclusion. How can we utilize this immense potential? How can we utilize it? How can we store it? How can we move it around like oil? Okay, in large quantities. For example, if I want to move 1 million barrels from Saudi Arabia to Japan, How can I move it? I cannot move it in batteries. So the obvious conclusion is going to be green hydrogen. Is it going to be some form of green hydrogen? That's a kind of discussion now, okay, or kind of competing technologies, but all saying green hydrogen is the most viable option to move, to transport, to store, whatever it is. Okay, slide 2, please. Slide 2. Can I move to slide 2, please?
It's react a little bit slower, but we already moved.
Yes. Now this is a very nice slide. Oh, now you jump to slide 3. Slide 2 shows the atlas of the world, sun, solar, and it's saying on the right side the price of hydrogen. This is an international reference, and I think we got to that price today, not after 5 years. Okay, because the solar PV now cost is below 1.5 cents. So I think we are at this level right now. Can we move to the next slide? Now, this is by Siemens. I got it from Siemens. And they are saying hydrogen from electrolyzer becomes competitive, okay, with the gray hydrogen. And it's competitive with hydrogen. Anyway, now, the key point here that in the solar is available in Germany for 2,000 hours. In Egypt, it exceeds 4,000 hours annually. And we are still saying it is expensive here. I don't know why. If it is available for 2,000 in Germany and 25% of their power they are getting it from solar, and we are not getting that much in Egypt, okay? And we are still saying that it is expensive in Egypt. So we got double the solar available, and we are still saying it is expensive. Can we go to the next one, please? Now, this is another reference where saying how much area I need to supply the world or Europe with their electric need. Okay, next one, please. Now, this is the Europe energy balance up to 2050. On the left, look into how much they want to get green hydrogen or from North Africa. Okay, and I think we are behind, or we are ahead a lot about disputing what kind of strategic energy storage or mobility or whatever it is for the renewable. I think the world had made, the advanced world have made their mind that is going to be hydrogen. And if you look on the right, you will see that the electricity will be from solar, wind, and the makeup or the balance will come from hydrogen, green hydrogen, okay? And the industry and other uses will be for, but the share of North Africa is tremendous, and Egypt should not miss this opportunity. We look to the next one, please. Next slide, please. This is the African initiative, and it's becoming published more and more. And this, I think, the pipeline is going from Egypt to Greece, to Italy, and to the network. And it's always, and also coming from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is making humongous progress. They started building a plant with 5 billion. They talking with Germany about exporting this green hydrogen. They saying that I want to have a good piece of the hydrogen pie worldwide. They have the largest proved reserve of oil. They have a substantial proved reserve of gas, and they want a hydrogen. And we don't have oil and very little gas, and we don't want to, and we are saying hydrogen is competing and so on. And they are complementing what we have. I think we should not miss this, because the size of what Europe wants from North Africa is equivalent to 3 Zohr field. You are talking about $14, $15 billion a year. We should not miss this. Egypt share should get, and this should not wait. We should move. We are behind. We have Saudi Arabia with us, and we have Europe, which we want. We should synchronize. So at least the first shipment should be from Egypt. Okay.
Dr. Sawi, could we conclude, Yani, within
just next one, please. Next one, please. Next slide. Now, this is the electricity. I think electricity should move to renewable and green hydrogen. You are talking, if we are gonna produce 40 gigawatt, you are gonna consume all the gas. That cost is gonna be equal to around $20 billion a year, fuel, only fuel. You are not gonna spend on renewable and hydrogen every year $20 billion. So that is another driver for Egypt to jump in. Next one, please. This is the typical solar and hydrogen fuel cell in Japan. It is running now. Next one, please. This is the biggest fuel cell power plant in Korea. Next one. Next one, please. Next one. Now the hydrogen counts. Hydrogen counts have grown to 100. No, before. Can we go back? Back. These are the last two slides. Have grown from 60 to 100 members. They represent more than 6.6 trillion market value. And the huge company from Japan to America. And they are going full steam with green hydrogen. And we're still thinking, is it the right way to proceed? Next one. Next one. This is the last. By 20, that is International Hydrogen Strategy. By 2020, hydrogen site can be expected to cover countries which produce 80% of the global GDP. By 2050, it will, the amount of hydrogen will be 270 million tons. I think this revolution have started, and Egypt is very late, and the export and the electricity are major factor. We should move now, even before we establish a strategy, because it impacts the economy of Egypt. If I'm gonna save $20 billion fuel, that should impact the Egyptian economy. If I'm gonna export what is equivalent to $5 or maybe more $billion, that will impact the Egyptian economy, and it will be to let this green hydrogen go in the different sector as depend on the priority and the contribution, the positive contribution to the Egyptian economy. Thank you very much. I have a 2 minutes video. I would love for you to share it.
Okay, Yani, we could share it, but I hope, Yani, we could catch up with time. Yeah. Okay, we could share this video. I believe this video is about Australian experience with green hydrogen. Actually, Dr. Sawi has provided us with this video. Is it running now? If there is a problem in running the video, we could try it by the end of our session today. I will move to Mr. Andreas Baker to give us his preliminary thoughts about hydrogen and challenges and what role hydrogen could play in future. Mr. Andreas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Professor Harris Salmadia, I hope I pronounced it correct. Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with you some of the prospects that we from ThyssenKrupp, or should I better say UDE, which is a brand name here in Egypt, quite known, see in this country. Could we put the first slide on the screen, please?
First slide on the screen.
Or should I even say second one? Because
I don't know, there is an echo with your sound. I don't know if there is a possibility to adjust it.
I will try my very best.
I will mute my...
Okay, I will try my very best. Can we see the first slide?
Yes, we are. It has a delay in response a little bit, but we are...
Thank you very much, Ms. Kusman. Okay, there we go. Already to the next one, please. I'm sharing now, of course, a company view. I will explain to you a few things, first of all, about the capabilities, and then you will see how far, what kind of possibilities we see here. First of all, I would like to give you a short overview of our group and my company before I would like to highlight some of the developments that have already been achieved and why we believe Egypt has an excellent prerequisite to show the world that it is a modern tourist destination, a progressing economy, and with a strong industrial backbone, a place to invest in future. So let's start with ThyssenKrupp, which is today a technology company with the slogan Engineering Tomorrow Together, a group of some more than 100,000 employees and an annual turnover of 29 billion euro. I marked on this slide that I would like to focus today on the plant technology business and of course on the chemical and plant technology part within our group, which is known in Egypt as UDE. Next slide, please. Okay, while this slide is coming up, I already tell a few words. We are a fully fledged EPC contractor that delivers, of course, the complete value chain here over the entire life cycle of our industrial plants. We have our headquarters here in Essen and UDE's headquarters in Dortmund, both in the industrial heart of Germany, the so-called Ruhr area in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. I come to that later. In the past, it was a coal and steel-dominated industry, and today it's a technology hub, as you will see on my further slides. Next one, please. While it's coming up, already continue. We have built in Egypt, the next one, yes. We have built in Egypt almost every fertilizer plant and every cement plant. Many Egyptian companies have started with UDE or ThyssenKrupp Industrial Solutions plants. It's very successful business. Currently, another world-scale fertilizer complex is in the stage of realization in Sukna for NCIC. Next slide, please. More than 2,000 plants around the world, and as marked in that slide which is coming up, I will focus on the green hydrogen, ammonia, and methanol. But as you can see here, we come from a long-lasting history of experience in electrolysis, with more than 600 plants for electrolysis plants for the chlorine and caustic soda production. Also some realized here in Egypt, for instance, for chemical industries. Next slide, please. As a chemical engineer, I would just like to highlight on this slide the complete process chains that we are covered by our technologies or with international licensors. So since we are already in the gray electrolysis, ammonia, methanol and fertilizer business, it was for us a logical consequence to enter in the green fields, especially with our alkaline water electrolysis. Next slide, please. Of course, some of the content of this upcoming slide has been shared already during the course of these webinars. What I would just like to highlight here again is that the green technologies will evolve over the next few years as CO2 taxation and carbon pricing will eventually come. And the European Union, for instance, will only achieve its ambitious goal in carbon neutrality until 2050 with support of neighboring countries, such as Egypt, that have access to optimal renewable resources and enough space available for wind and photovoltaic. Next, please. Next slide, please. Egypt, with Energy Minister Shaker, has set a clear strategy with targets for cutting emissions through increasing share of renewable energy, achieving a 20% renewable energy of the total generation capacity by the end of this year and increase to 37% by 2030. The incentives, latest prices for the build, own and operate scheme are with 2 cents per kilowatt hour for solar energy and 3 cents per kilowatt hour of wind, quite promising. Of course, it was, as Mr. El Sarai said, not low enough still, so we have to see some extra subsidies for the feasibility, but nonetheless, it's already quite promising. On the following slide, if you go to the next one, this one is here from McKinsey, of course, and on the next slide, you can see our scheme of green chemical value chains that we can deliver. On the left side, you see all the CO2 emitting industry types, and then you always see a kind of electrolysis plant, and you then see the different processes to fertilize ammonia, methanol, refineries, and other plant uses. Because we believe that in the very beginning you will see a lot of plants coming up with derivatives which have some advantages. Next slide, please. To get an idea of the footprint that a 100 megawatt electrolysis plant requires, I've added this next slide, which is coming up. Just to have an idea of the size, 2,500 square meters for a 100 megawatt water electrolysis plant. Of course, the photovoltaic elements, I'm sorry, which are there on the roof, are just supplementing. Of course, the power has to come from a wind or solar farm, or, for instance, even hydropower, but which is not a focus here, definitely, or not a case for Egypt so much. Next slide, please. In January this year, we were awarded an 80 megawatt plant in Canada. And we expect soon the award of another 100 megawatt plant in the US by also a fertilizer company, Central Farmers Industries. And as you see, many of those contracting parties are producing fertilizer or ammonia. As you can see here, we have those large-scale modular electrolysis plants. So you see, this is for our daily business. From the chlor-alkali industry. So this was, of course, an advantage through this more than 30 years of experience. Next slide, please. Air Products has entered with us an exclusive cooperation for the NEOM project, for the 1.2 gigawatt project in Saudi Arabia, which is a phased project, as you can see here on the slide. And on the lower part, of the lower right-hand part, that was the Canadian company Hydro-Quebec, which awarded us the 80 megawatt plant. So you see, of course, many of those projects are being announced. And I just can show you here, we have a market share in this electrolysis business of more than 40% coming from the chlor-alkali projects. More than 300,000 of those elements have been manufactured. We are currently pushing our production per year. We are already can produce cells of 1 gigawatt per annum, and of course now increasing these production capacities. As you can see, next slide, please.
Mr. Andreas, could you conclude within 10 to 15 seconds?
Yes, I will. The last few slides. As you can see here, in Germany, in the heart, this is a steel site that we have in Duisburg. That was also the location of one of the first pilot plants, the 2 megawatt plant. On the next, if you then continue on the next slide, which I will only show very shortly, because it only stresses how ThyssenKrupp Steel is aiming at climate neutral steel production until 2050. This is the plant that we've done as a pilot plant, and you see already that first industrial production of first methanol and first ammonia was in 2018. Please continue to the next slide. And since I provide these slides, I've also added on the next 2 slides, which I don't want to show. This is, for instance, how a steel producing company such as ThyssenKrupp is aiming at reducing its carbon footprint until 2050 to be carbon neutral in steel. It just gives you an idea how traditional industries will change. And the next 2 slides, we jump over them, but they are available. We show you some KPIs, for instance, for green ammonia production or green methanol production. And I just would like only to conclude now on the last slide to be ready for questions and my answers. So Marion Kussmann, if you could just jump over the next 2 ones, you will have the KPIs provided if you would like later on to look into those. Also the last slide. Because even if today we are of course talking that this technology is only feasible with subsidies, I think one message that I would really like to convey, that if a country like Egypt would be a front runner in technology application, what would it convey to the world? Imagine the message to the world that the first hydrogen buses would transport international tourists to their destinations in Egypt. If the first cargo ships would be refueled at the shores of Egypt with green methanol before passing the Suez Canal, using green hydrogen from photovoltaic and wind power, and for instance using the CO2 from the cement plants in Ain Sukna and elsewhere that would receive the oxygen from the electrolysis for a more efficient process, or if the first green ammonia leaving the port of Aboukir for European destinations, that should really be also taken into account, because frontrunners definitely in this new technology will gain additional benefits from this, and this is how I would like to conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Andreas, for the presentation, but I hope during the time when we go for questions, if there is a chance to replace the microphone, it would be a pleasure, because we have some noise, but we enjoyed very much your excellent presentation. I will move right to Dr. Wissam El-Baz to provide his thoughts. Please, Dr. Wissam.
So thank you, Dr. Salmawi, very much for the introduction. Also, Mr. Becker and Dr. Al-Sawi for the very comprehensive presentation. I'm very glad I was invited to such cutting-edge discussion about green hydrogen investment and application, market potential, and challenges in Egypt. And off the top of my head, in the meantime, not only Egypt is interested in hydrogen, but actually there's a huge unprecedented momentum behind hydrogen by both policymakers, governments, and companies in the meantime. To complement Dr. Al-Sawi's presentation, also Mr. Becker's presentation, I would say I see hydrogen not only as an energy carrier or an alternative green fuel, but actually as a means to overcome the current difficult challenges facing our energy system, or including our electricity sector in the meantime. First of all, I would say I see it as a means to integrate more renewables in our grid without influencing our financial sustainability. So if we look to the international forecast, which is also based on our next Analytica models, we can see that there is an expected of about 5,000 to 6,000 gigawatt of water electrolysis plants worldwide. And those 6,000 gigawatts will consume 6,000 gigawatts of renewable energies. That's why, personally, I believe there would be definitely another boom worldwide if there would be a proper political and more or less still a government push towards hydrogen. The other point I see it is that with hydrogen, we can definitely overcome the current grid constraints we are facing from renewables in the meantime, because hydrogen is simply a storage. We can see it as a battery, which will also, in this case, complementing the renewable energies and also making up for the other fuels or fossil fuels we are consuming. We are seeing another way to meet our decarbonization goals. And this all adds up to enhancing our energy security through enabling fuel diversification and providing flexibility to the grid. Thus, if I would conclude the way I see it is that I don't see hydrogen is just a fuel in that case, but a mean for offering flexibility to the electricity grid. We can call it the new battery of the electricity sector, which would enable new investments, new business models, and definitely more renewable energies in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baz, for keeping time. And I switch to Engineer Booth to provide his thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Hafiz, and thank you all. Actually, hydrogen is actually a very interesting subject that all the world is speaking about, specifically in the energy sector. And yes, some people have misunderstanding to hydrogen, as they think that it's an energy source. But however, hydrogen actually is an energy carrier. So it's a means of for storage, for energy storage. And there is a big debate going on about hydrogen. Like, is it going to be a big part of the net zero journey that we are all seeking to achieve by 2050? How much is going to be part of that journey? So will the current technologies be able to secure what we need from hydrogen and to secure us with the energy that we are seeking from hydrogen, and to store the surplus electricity that we are going to supply from renewables among all the countries or continents that they are seeking right now to develop wind, offshore winds or onshore winds or solar or CSP. So toward this goal, so hydrogen mainly is complementing renewables, like to expand the capacities from the electricity grid and from the percentage of renewable energy. Hydrogen is the way to complement renewables and to expand its share from our energy mix. That's a main thing that we are seeking right now, actually in Egypt, as we have a big surplus in our electricity production. And we are seeking actually to expand the renewable energy from our energy mix. So hydrogen, definitely batteries is not an option for a gigawatt scale storage for that we are seeking to achieve. Like now we have an around 40% target of the renewable energy mix from Egypt production by 2040, I believe. So we are seeking to achieve, right now we are talking about 6 gigawatts around from renewable energy. So batteries is not an option within that. So and with the current surplus, I believe it's around 15% to 20% of electricity at the moment. So I believe hydrogen can be, on the short term right now, is a mean of storage of this surplus electricity, and another mean also to export this surplus electricity to other countries that are in need for this green electricity. So like right now we are thinking about other options of exporting surplus electricity to Europe through subsea cables. I see that's a big challenge, like what we are seeing across the pipeline or the gas pipeline that we have been trying to do across the East Med that has been pending for a very long time. So there are a lot of challenges regarding the subsea cables or pipelines that to supply energy with its needed targets. So I believe hydrogen through shipping and also definitely through pipeline, it will come through along the way, but through shipping through ammonia or methanol or liquid hydrogen, when it comes to its challenges and the technology that's needed to avoid the efficiencies that's being lost to produce liquid hydrogen. So by time when the efficiencies and technologies are advanced enough related to liquid hydrogen for experts, and to improve the efficiencies in the production of green hydrogen, that will come the time that it will be the choice for exporting surplus electricity. However, right now, the world needs to increase electrification. That's the main target. And the hard to abate industries. That's the main focus right now that we all see as an opportunity for hydrogen, like mainly steel industries, and we have cement industries and ammonia industries. Like we have one of the worst polluting industries across the world is ammonia, actually, which is currently, I believe it's producing around maybe 12 tons of CO2 per each for each gray ton of hydrogen, and then we produce around 12 CO2 tons of hydrogen in return. So I believe the moment there is a chance that we can work first as a first stage on developing blue hydrogen and utilize our natural gas resources, which is Egypt right now is mainly focusing on expanding its exploration activities and across the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. And we have a big potential till 2040 of having good and huge amount of gas explorations and production, that we can utilize that in producing blue hydrogen with the carbon capture and storage technologies, despite that maybe that's not the perfect scenario of totally totally abating the CO2 emissions or the greenhouse gases emissions. But that's in a transition phase that we have to work out with what we have at the moment as a first stage, and work on the efficiencies comparisons, like what we have right now from comparison to abated natural gas versus blue hydrogen, for instance. Like if we compare the efficiencies to produce blue hydrogen with carbon capture and utilize it as a fuel, and versus the abated natural gas directly to utilize it as for power generation or heat, we'll find that we are comparing 40 to 50% efficiency of blue hydrogen to be utilized in power generation or heat versus abated natural gas, which could reach around 70 to 80% efficiency. So that's huge gap between utilizing abated natural gas with carbon capture and directly to power generation and heat, which could be actually achieved today with 70 to 80% of efficiency versus blue hydrogen to be utilized to heat and electrification. So that's the big challenges that we have to think about, and the strategies that will guide us and think about the industries that to utilize the best utilization of hydrogen at the moment, which could be mainly for the refining sector, which currently is using the hydrogen already as a gray hydrogen in most of the refineries at the moment. So there is a big potential right now to start with, as for instance, the refining sector to start to displace the normal SMR production of hydrogen in the refineries to include carbon capture technologies, to start in the transition period and work on the blue hydrogen as a first stage, and for instance to start with the ammonia and other the steel industries and supply them with the transition phase, and then explore the technologies which is daily on a daily advancements all around the world. Research and development is going on through expanding the technologies, starting from the alkaline, which is already mature and we all know about it. Then coming right now, huge advancement related to PEM technologies, and one of the most promising, and the world is waiting to this technology, which is the solid oxide fuel cells, solid oxide technology for electrolyzers and fuel cells as well, which could utilize the natural gas and other biogases as well as hydrogen to produce hydrogen or to produce electricity through the solid oxide fuel cells. So many opportunities, and the strategy is the first step for us, I believe, as a country, that we have to work from the policymakers and regulatory authorities together with the research institutions and the NGOs and industry leaders as yourselves, with the panelists that we have here, to lead and guide the strategy making for the country as a first stage, and to put a plan for how to utilize hydrogen and what's the best uses, and make like an atlas, like solar atlas or wind atlas. We believe that we could have a hydrogen atlas to guide this country on the best advancement for the industry.
Conclude, engineer.
Sorry?
Could we conclude?
Yeah. So I believe right now the first step, that's that the president has taken a great step that we all heard about through the recent announcements that was done with Germany and Belgium, I believe, and others, to start working on the development of like deployment, the first deployment, or like demonstration projects for hydrogen generation here in Egypt, which is a very good thing related to starting the research and development in parallel to that, and to know and to build the capacity as well. And to capacity building is very important for Egypt, because we need to build the knowledge and build the strategy first, and to know the best uses and where is the best use for hydrogen in another to the other technologies to secure our global net zero goals with the other technologies and electrification of other industries as well. So thank you, Dr. Hafiz.
Thank you very much. And I move right directly to Mr. Hans Bernis for his thoughts. I hope if we could keep the track of time.
Sure, I will
yes.
try to keep it.
I hope you unmute your microphone, please.
I think I unmuted my microphone already. Could you please put on the presentation, my presentation on the screen? Thank you. Just a very short introduction about the company I work for, NG. Next slide, please. The recently redefined purpose of our company is to accelerate the transition towards a carbon neutral economy, and in two ways: to reduce the energy consumption and to find more environmentally friendly solutions for energy generation. Next slide, please. Here's a brief overview of our activities all over the world. Around 60 billion euros revenue annually last year in 2019. Last year was about the same. And as you can see, a substantial presence in the Middle East and Africa and Asia as well. Next slide, please. Well, this speaks for itself. Next, please. Yes, we have set very clear targets for 2030 with the figures mentioned here. And I think it's very important that we try to set the good example ourselves. with moving away from polluting energy production like in coal, and we reduced a reduction of carbon dioxide emissions of 52%, measured per kilowatt hour of energy produced. Next slide, please. We're focusing there on 3 priorities: accelerating by investing in renewables, strengthening our investments in networks, like our acquisition of the gas network in Brazil, but also in other countries, and refocusing our client solutions on activities that serve the energy transition. And our target is to add 3 to 4 gigawatt of renewable energy production every year. Next slide, please. Yes, to create all this, we have, like I said, we heavily invest about 7.5 billion euros annually, and we also are a pioneer in green financing. So to really promote the development of green and sustainable energy. Next slide, please. Here a bit more figures, what we do in terms of research and in innovation. And I think the very important target is that we have 100% of green gas by 2050. So no more other gas usage, but only 100% renewable gas produced by 2050. Next slide, please. Well, these are, I think we can skip this one. It's already mentioned before. We can, yes. Here, before going to a very concrete example of what we are doing in green hydrogen development, I think for a country like Egypt, where I've been based now for the last 3 years, and I was previously responsible for construction and commissioning of the first privately financed wind farm in the Gulf of Suez area. I'm currently working. Can you please go back to the previous slide, or are we running out of time already?
There is a delay in response.
Yes, yeah, that's okay. It's a miracle already that we can communicate in this way. Just a few what we see as key success factors for green hydrogen development, and also related to Egypt, of course, which I fully agree with the previous speakers. Egypt is in a very unique position at the crossroads of limitless sustainable energy production by wind and solar, but also at the crossroads of available other resources and transport and shipping, of course, through the Suez Canal. And that's, although the name is maybe less familiar, ENGIE, one of the previous names of ENGIE was GDF Suez, and Suez is the company, the original company that built the Suez Canal. So we have a long history with Egypt. What is really important, we think, is that there should be, if you want to produce green hydrogen, then there should be renewable energy production nearby, like wind or solar. And also very important, that green hydrogen off-takers, they require a stable supply. So you must be able to provide a stable supply of green hydrogen, which could be achieved by storing, of course, excess hydrogen you produce. Another very important point, I think, especially also for Egypt, is that the regulatory framework also allows you to, as a developer, to develop long-term sustainable projects. And that's with a regulatory framework. We also look at what are the possibilities to transport your own the electricity you produce yourself to a hydrogen production facility, or the tariffs that are offered for renewable energy production. I think it was Mr. Beckers that mentioned the tariffs that are currently the benchmark tariffs for wind and solar energy. If you develop projects for long-term contracts with the Egyptian government, and let's say the tariffs that are offered there are very challenging indeed to make a good business case. What also is very important are long-term contracts with sustainable rates, and with sustainable rates we mean then that the rates are properly adjusted to other price indicators. And most importantly, we think, because it's a huge investment you have to do, is the long-term commitment from the government and business partners to establish the entire supply chain, but especially a long-term commitment without changing rules and regulations year after year, because you really need stability to commit huge amounts of investment into this business. Next slide, please. Yes, well, this is a very concrete example of what ENGIE and with his partner Total is developing in France, and that was recently announced. Production of green hydrogen from 100% renewable energy from solar farms in the vicinity of the Total refinery in close to Marseille would be for the start a 50 megawatt electrolyzer to produce 5 tons of green hydrogen per day. So to meet the needs for the biofuel production process at the Total's biorefinery, and thereby avoiding 15,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year. If you look, of course, at the broader picture, this is only a first start, but I think it's a very good development that at least to put things into practice and see what the bottlenecks are and where we can improve the processes, and at least to get a feel of how this could work. And I think this is one of the first examples of large-scale industrial, real green hydrogen production in at least in Europe. Thank you for your attention. I hope I stayed in time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brunis, for keeping in time, and very informative question. I appreciate if you could extend for half an hour. I will not forward question as planned before, and give more chance for our participants to forward their question to our panelists. Yet I would like to focus first. I will not request an answer, but if I could say that the main theme of Dr. Issawi presentation was focusing very much on the export opportunities for Egypt for hydrogen, and how Egypt should take a chance of this opportunity. Yet I would like to raise 2 points here. One of them is the standard trade barrier. Second is that if, for example, Europe is going to offer some, you call it subsidies or incentives for its local production of hydrogen, is that ready to give it for the same import from abroad or not? If I go for what Mr. Bakers raised about that priority may be for hydrogen to be used as a feedstock for many industries like fertilizers, maybe some metallurgical industries. So the focus maybe, or what I could understand, that the maybe future of hydrogen is more or less, rather than being an energy source, but maybe a non-energy feedstock, which give us better utilization for hydrogen. So is that right or not? If I came to Dr. Elbaz, I might raise a question of hydrogen versus batteries. If I heard Elon Musk, for example, he was very much pro for batteries and how batteries more efficient than hydrogen conversion. So is the future will be hydrogen or batteries? I don't usually like to put things against each other, but this is one of the main questions, and what kind of regulations we might need to have. If I came to Engineer Booth, I would very much favor what he mentioned about that hydrogen is a complementary to renewable energy, but I might challenge his point of starting with blue hydrogen. Blue hydrogen means that 50% increase in cost of the gray hydrogen, and is that feasible to pump that substantial investments in carbon capture, while green hydrogen expected to its price could go less, and that we couldn't have a time to recover this cost back. So this is raised an open question. If I come to Mr. Brunis regarding his presentation, I may raise a question about is hydrogen and providing the cost of their pilot plants and the policy in Europe, is a real challenge for hydrogen to go without having a kind of an incentive mechanism or a kind of a subsidy, or on the other side impose a kind of additional carbon tax for other fuels, or it could compete by itself in future. I'll keep myself here and I switch to our participants. We have some hand raised for questions, and if they could put in line to forward their questions or provide their comments, we have 20 minutes for this. So please, Marion, if you could switch, I think we have one hand raised or two hand raised.
Mr. Sharif Teknawi.
Mr. Sharif.
Yes, hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you so much for these comprehensive presentations and the discussions. It's very rich, actually. I will jump to the question because I believe that everyone now knows, or the interested companies now knows everything about producing green hydrogen and the process of the production itself. But actually, I would like you to start discussing the value chain of the green hydrogen, because we do have some challenges now worldwide, which is all related to the off-taker and how we will export the green hydrogen. If we speak about Egypt as a potential location to start producing green hydrogen, and we all agree on this, so what's the competitive way that we can do in Egypt in order to start exporting the green hydrogen from Egypt and feed a market like Europe with the production of the green hydrogen locally in Egypt? If we speak about converting this green hydrogen to green ammonia and then sending the green ammonia to Europe and then get it back into hydrogen, green hydrogen, to start using there locally in Europe, I think this is a very expensive process. And I think we have to focus now on the R&D and how we can do this in a very cheap way, and how to make the whole process very cheap. This is from my point of view. Thank you so much. This is just my question.
Okay, Mr. Sharif, to whom you are forwarding your question?
Or
it's general to our panelists to whom?
Yes, please, because I'm talking about the people, all people interested in the green hydrogen production.
Okay, so our panelists.
Can I comment?
Yes, please, Dr. Saad.
Okay. First of all, Europe coming to North Africa because they can get hydrogen, it's cheaper or competitive basis than what they produce in Europe. This will develop. It got to dance together. The development should start now, and we should communicate with Europe. Saudi Arabia is not waiting. They are going full blast. Now, exporting hydrogen to Europe, it is a win-win situation. Okay, but definitely for Egypt, the hydrogen will be cheaper than Europe. This is the way to start. The other thing which I kept saying that you got to make electricity green because the saving in fuel is humongous. Okay, and I'm telling you, if I got 40 gigawatt, you will be spending like $20 billion every year on fuel. We are not going to spend that kind of much on the investment on renewable and so on. Now, I would like to comment or 3 comments. First of all, to Dr. Hafiz, you are saying that the price of hydrogen will be $9 per million BTU. Okay, this is you are comparing now, but when we were importing the liquefied natural gas, were above $9 and $10. In the future,
around between $6 and $7 million dollars.
Okay, but if you look into the BP statistical review also, when the barrel hit the $100, the LNG were above 10, it were 13, 14, and reached $17. After the COVID, when the world comes to grow again and GDP goes up, the price of oil will go down. The only feasible way now, environmentally sound, is to go ahead full steam with this kind of green hydrogen. The Prime Minister of the former Prime Minister of Japan have a good statement saying green hydrogen or hydrogen is as important as renewable energy. Now, for this batteries and the hydrogen storage, they are complementing each other. For the smaller scale, it's going to be batteries. But if I want to move million barrel energy equivalent from here to Japan, it got to be hydrogen. It's not going to be by batteries. Okay, so for the biggest storage, whatever Musk say or whatever he say, he is only small cars. But when you go to heavy trucks, trains, all this, if you want to strategically store energy, it's not going to be batteries. Okay, so this is fundamentals. We cannot dispute fundamentals.
We could limit to give more chance for other questions to be forward.
Okay, now just one point for you. Okay.
Yes, please.
You are telling me that the efficiency is 40 or 45 or 42, or even if it is 40. Dr. Hafiz, I am getting my energy from solar and wind and seawater. If the energy is efficiency is 40%, but still I can produce electricity much better than the conventional unit, much cheaper than the conventional unit. You have to compare apple with apple. The best power generation unit is 35. I am burning 35 of the value of the fuel in air. But in the renewable, what I'm burning? I'm losing sun, I'm losing air. Are we paying for this? So if we got to compare, not theoretical, it got to be practical. Which one will give me more competitive price for electricity? Which one? If I'm taking the solar in the morning at less than 1.5 cents per kilowatt, and the hydrogen fuel cell coping for the balance of the day, definitely, and as all references, you will be getting cheaper electricity than now. So
okay, thank you, Dr.
now is now. Thank you very much.
Okay,
and I hope that you will have 2 minutes for the debate. It is very nice thing and very
we will try
refreshing.
to run it by the end of the presentation, but webinar.
Somewhere in between, because it is refreshing.
Okay, Dr. So keeping debate going on, I just raised 2 points. One of them, we are in Europe, we are not competing with what being produced in Europe because basically Europe were import a supplementary for its own production. So we were competing with other who are going to export to Europe. Secondly, apple with apple means that comparing hydrogen with pumping and storage, which has an efficiency of 70 to 80%, or batteries compared to 40% hydrogen. And this is the main point which is being raised. I keep on just to act like the bad guy in the discussions.
No, you got to be the good guy.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Sharif again would like to another. Okay, so I stimulate, or I request all of our participants to have their questions. Since we don't have another raise hand except Mr. Sharif, so please, Mr. Sharif, again, if you have a comment. And please, others, please involve in the discussion.
Thank you, Doctor. No, I don't have another question. I'm just waiting for from the panelists to answer the question I already did.
Okay, I have written questions coming to me. This question I might forward to Dr. Baz. Is there any progress for hydrogen regulation or hydrogen strategy in Egypt? Dr. Baz? Please, Yani, within 1 minute.
Yeah, sure, I will do my best. I believe there have been already steps like the one with the pilot project with Siemens that has been intended by the Minister of Electricity. So it's one step ahead. However, I don't believe there is still a strategy that has been announced or a specific target. So this is what we can see in the meantime. However, to proceed with hydrogen, and I would like to more or less emphasize of what Mr. Hans Prunes has also presented, is that we should have definitely long-term contracts. We should be offering something like what we have offered with the renewable energy, a feed-in premium as an example. And of course, above all, is to set a specific zero emission targets in this case. I'm just thinking also relevant to the question of Mr. Diknawi in this case. If we just had a simple regulation stating that we have to limit or we have to produce a low carbon ammonia, then we will have more or less a market potential of 35 megatons in this case worldwide to cover, just with a simple regulation with this. However, along with this kind of regulation, we should start actually now to start preparing standards. So when we speak about hydrogen, we need a standard for the hydrogen infrastructure. We need a standard for hydrogen generation. We need a standard for typically the transportation and storage, for the fueling and dispensing system. And just when we go to the hydrogen infrastructure itself standards, we need one for the fuel specification, one for the fuel quality for different applications, one for the fuel cells as an example for vehicles, polymer electrolyte fuel cell, proton exchange membrane fuel cell based hydrogen. All of these are a long list of standards that we have to work on in the meantime.
Thank you, Doctor. I have raised hands from Mr. Baker. Please, Mr. Baker, provide us with your comment.
We'll come back to some of the questions also with respect to hydrogen. Our analysis for Egypt definitely has shown that hydrogen production in Egypt should, for the short term, be one with the derivatives ammonia, methanol, because Egypt has the infrastructure. And if you look at Saudi Arabia, for instance, the NEOM project is also an ammonia project. It is producing for 1.2 gigawatt 3,000 tons of ammonia, because Saudi Arabia has also understood that ammonia is the much more easier energy carrier to transport. The logistics are there, the infrastructure is there. So our analysis definitely is shown, looking at Egypt, having the infrastructure available for ammonia and also methanol. This should be the way forward. We also propose to our customers right now that we all know, and I think every one of the presentations has always said that you need subsidies. In the beginning, it is not feasible. In the beginning, you have to just start into the technology. That's why we always propose in the long-term investments, for instance, for a new ammonia plant, for a new methanol plant, you are looking at 20 years of operation. So if you invest now, you have to already keep in mind a production in 20 years. So we propose save some of the natural gas, produce with a certain amount hydrogen, then have the synthesis for green ammonia or green methanol. You gain experience in that technology. You don't spend an enormous amount of money. The prices will go down, and then continue with this brand, with this brand and this trademark of exporting, because we are currently studying this. We like very much that Siemens has concluded a memorandum of understanding of studying, for instance, this first pilot project. Competition is always good, also for the economies of scale and for business. And we believe that beside the alkaline water electrolysis technology, the PEM technology from Siemens, both technologies will at the end also come through by this enormous amount. And this is what we see currently for Egypt.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. Have you finished, Mr. Ricker?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. I might find that it could be for Mr. Brunes, which is saying that based on experience in France for the hydrogen production facility, which operate on solar energy, sun is only shining 12 hours per day. How about production of hydrogen during night? And we know, we understand very much that cost of produced hydrogen is very much function in number of operating hour of the electrolyzers. So how you overcome this challenge, and at what cost you are producing hydrogen at France?
Well, the issue of only having 12 hours a day sunlight, that can be overcome by producing excess hydrogen during the day and store it for the hours that the sun is not available, so that you can still continue using it for the final production process. That's one.
No, but the challenge is basically that you could operate only your electrolyzers for 12-hour max, which means that less than 4,000 hours per year, which is make hydrogen very expensive because this overhead will be divided by the production. So how you could extend the number of operating hours of your electrolyzers?
Well, that's for instance to not only have solar panels as a renewable energy source, but also wind. And especially in Egypt, along the Gulf of Suez, as the recent developments also prove in terms of development of large-scale wind farms. There, the wind conditions are extremely positive. One of the best wind resource locations in the world, actually, with a very constant source of energy for the wind, day and night, even with higher production during the night than during the day. So in combined solar and wind as renewable energy source could very well overcome this issue. At the same time, ENGIE has, in cooperation with other partners, developed other solutions producing renewable energy with concentrated solar plants, where the solar energy can be stored and to allow for energy production up to 5 to 6 hours after sunset. So thereby reducing also that the period that the sun is not available. But of course, it's better to have multiple sources of renewable energy available.
Okay, I have a question to the engineer Booth from Motaz Dakruri. He mentions concerning one of the recommendations proposed earlier in the webinar regarding starting with blue hydrogen. I am wondering whether this is economically viable considering the low energy density of hydrogen compared to natural gas. Engineer Booth?
Okay, so right now we are talking about an already existing industry where hydrogen is being currently produced and utilized in various industries, and which is mainly the grain, which is not being like abated for the CO2 emissions. So there is no carbon capture technologies already there. So we are talking about an industries and hydrogen being utilized in other industries, like in whatever in refining or in steel production or any other industries like ammonia, for instance, or methanol. So already we are going to be committed very soon towards regulations and especially for the products that we are going to export to Europe. Like currently we are exporting steel to Europe, and we are exporting actually ammonia as well. And ammonia is going to implement the carbon taxes, and it's going to be the carbon borders implemented very soon, which is going to tax any products that have a certain amount of carbon emissions involved. So that's huge. That's going to be a huge impact on the economy, and especially for the local producers who are depending on exports to Europe, which is going to be impacted if we are not going to work on converting the current situation and go through transition phase to the blue. Because if we didn't do so, then we are not going to be economically viable for the products utilizing the gray. So you have to think it on the other way around. Very soon you're going to be impacted. And currently, yes, you are not. But according to the transition plan, you have to see how the world is moving towards a net zero plan and working towards implementing carbon emission taxes and carbon borders, which your products, which you are working on developing your economies here in Egypt. We are building our economy, and we are one of the best performing emerging countries. We have to look ahead and see what's coming ahead of us. So to see what's the nearest impact on us and the current industries that we are depending on our experts, and work accordingly early and start from now to start developing through transit through the blue, and then see how we can work out with in parallel as well for the green. So yes, right now it's not a direct impact. However, it's going to happen very soon, and then our products are not going to be economically competitive and commercially competitive towards other competitors around the world who are producing steel or green steel or green ammonia. So that's actually an answer to your question. Thank you.
Okay.
Please, Dr. You are mute.
Sorry, I was muted. Keeping the time track, I would like to request our panelists just to give one recommendation to the national committee which has been established in Egypt to establish a hydrogen strategy for the country. Just one recommendation, please. So start with Dr. Sawi. What's your recommendation? One recommendation.
Well, it is
first. Please unmute your microphone.
I did unmute. Okay. Is it? Can you hear me now?
Dr. Sawi, please unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
No, we couldn't hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
There's two pillars for this hydrogen. The export, we should talk now with Saudi and Europe, so we will be involved. The second one is the electricity. We should go full swing with electricity and catch up with what is happening around the world, especially in Europe, to be green electricity.
Okay, so electricity and export.
Yes, and the strategy should not come before this. This should go immediately while we are developing.
Going in parallel. Okay. Yes. So I switch to Mr. Baker. One recommendation.
I understand it as one sentence. Okay, the one sentence is really, I would recommend the strategy committee to support its existing industries to start with first projects into green hydrogen, but converting it directly into the energy carriers, which are also energy carriers, green ammonia and green methanol, because there are a number of producers are already checking the use of ammonia and methanol either in ship engines or even in, for instance, combustion.
Okay, so exporting in different variety of media. Dr. Baz?
I would definitely recommend setting a strategy to enable and support the current hydrogen or gray hydrogen off-takers in Egypt to convert to blue or green in the soonest possible time, so that we can start building a pilot project and start experimenting and integrating those systems with the grid.
Okay, Engineer Booth.
Well, I actually, like I've actually recommended in my initiative that I've worked on earlier last year, there should be some kind of a clear and very strict roadmap that the strategy committee has to follow, and with a plan. And this plan should be very clear and visible to everyone. What are we going to do and when, and what's our goal, what we are aiming to achieve, and so putting this ahead of us, and the clear goal in front of us, what we are willing to achieve for hydrogen in Egypt, and what we want out of it, and when we are expecting to get this strategy, and accordingly the policies afterwards, after this strategy, and the regulatory framework, which will allow the foreign investment, direct foreign investment to come in the country. This is the first step that has to be finished first by the strategy. So all the international investors and the local as well, and the SMEs who are looking forward to start getting into this industry as well, and work out through providing solutions beside the bigger players in the market. So step number one, plan with a clear schedule and implementation, and to be followed up actually by the higher authorities, and to be implemented in a very detailed way. That's the step and most important step in the beginning. So that's
okay. Thank you, Mr. Burnett.
Yes, I think it's mentioned before. I would clearly recommend. Sorry.
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Burnett.
Okay, thank you.
One recommendation to the National Committee for Hydrogen Strategy.
I would clearly recommend, as other speakers already mentioned, to start with a pilot project on an industrial scale, and then work out what kind of framework is needed in terms of legislation and other requirements needed to make it a viable option for long-term investment.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. I just have a question, if you allow me, I could answer it, which is from Engineer Mohammed Salim, which is about the required kilowatt hour to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, considering the alkaline electrolyzer. Now we talk about 51 kilowatt hour per kilogram of hydrogen so far. If I could conclude this
I have one point.
Yes,
point.
Yes, please.
Whatever.
In less than 1 minute, please.
1 minute. It is a mandate. Egypt got to be first in North Africa. We got to be first on Africa. We cannot leave all this strategy and all this business open-ended. Okay, so mandate, and it got to be well emphasized. Egypt got to be first in North Africa and in Africa.
Okay, react now. This is your recommendation, Dr. Sawi.
It shouldn't be open-ended.
React now and not wait too long.
Yes.
I think
you didn't show my the video.
Unfortunately, we have some technical challenges, so we will make it available to all our participants. Also, I invite our participants and for sure our panelists to send to us some points of recommendation, because we will try by the end to form a kind of recommendations for this webinar. So I invite all our participants, if they would like to recommend something, so we could send this recommendation to the National Committee. I believe also one of the merit of this kind of discussion is that question it raised might be more than the question we entered with webinar with. It's basically, do we export directly hydrogen or implicitly in products, specifically the policies, which is, for example, the Green Deal is through carbon border adjustment mechanism is for not direct export, but maybe for implicit export through greening industry. Do we go blue or we do go green directly for this? Do we go in a pilot project, or we do go for a large scale and do things in parallel? I think this is still an open question, and it might need more debate in future, but I think what has been raised today is very much stimulating ideas. And I would like to thank very much our panelists and our participants for their thoughts and ideas and contributions. And for sure, I would like to thank Marion for preparing and managing this webinar, and looking forward to meet you on our next webinar. Our next webinar will be on the 29th of March. It will be jointly done with our project and this will be about green certificate of origin, including hydrogen certificate of origin for hydrogen. Thank you very much. Looking forward to see you usually in our webinars. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.